Hi everyone, it's Chris Rubio again. How you doing? I know it's a hell of a clickbait title there, "The Secret to Happiness," but I think I've got it. Don't pursue happiness. I mean, I know in this country we have the pursuit of happiness, right? I think they weren't quite right about that. What we need to pursue is meaning. Well, you know what meaning is, right? Meaning is when you, it's hard to describe it, but you know it when you feel it. You feel like you're doing something and time slips away, or you feel like what you're doing is sort of makes your heart soar, or it gives you a good feeling. You know, you help somebody out. You do something nice for someone. It gives you some sense of meaning. You accomplish something. You complete something. Meaning is what leads ultimately to happiness. If you focus on happiness itself, it's ineffable. That's a word for you. It's just sort of a floating point. We don't really know what makes us happy, or it's fleeting, or it's momentary. Ooh, I got this thing, or I'm happy for a second. But meaning centers us and gives us a strong sense of who we are and what really matters to us. Because if you're doing what really matters to you, you get that sense of meaning, and at least the chance for happiness is a lot better, or a lot greater. And the question, of course, is how do you pursue meaning? Well, I'll tell you what it's not. It's not going to be found in identity. There's a lot of focus right now in our culture, especially amongst younger people, about identity. But identity is a black hole. It's me, 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 me. The more I focus on me, the more I contemplate my navel, the more I think about how I feel, how do I feel, how do I feel, me, 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 peeling the onions of me. The more I do that, the more I have to do it. The more seemingly empty I become. Like a black hole, the closer you get sucked further and further in. The answers, the meaning, is to be found in taking that self-focus and just turning it around and doing something in the world, making a positive impact, doing something productive on whatever level. Just one thing, even if it's doing the dishes, it's an accomplishment. It's in having an impact on the outside world that the meaning comes from. I mean, maybe it seems counterintuitive, and this is not an original idea by any stretch of the imagination, but it works. You got to get out of yourself. You got to stop thinking about yourself. You got to focus on the positive impacts you can have on the world. Now, you don't have to change the world. You don't have to cure cancer. But even just calling somebody on the phone, how you doing? Or nodding to somebody if you're walking down the street, or being pleasant, a little extra pleasant, and saying hello to somebody. And then you see the smile come over their face. And you're like, oh, I did a little something in the world. If you pursue meaning, happiness comes. If you focus on yourself, it's emptiness after emptiness after emptiness. And it's making people crazy. And especially, it's making our children crazy. Young people, by every metric, are increasing in suicidality, in anxiety, emotional problems. In an attempt to make our children's lives better, we've somehow focused on protecting them from all harm and all ill feeling, and never hearing the word no, and making them just these perfect little veals that never have to deal with any adversity. And it's making them crazy. They're left completely untethered. And because we need to struggle and accomplish things to find that meaning in our lives, they're mining themselves. They're focusing on themselves. If you don't have the meaning in the action in the outside world, you're going to find it somewhere. So they struggle and they focus on themselves, and they're going deeper and deeper into these black holes, and they're focusing on their identity, and they're fetishizing their emotional problems, so much so that they post it in their profiles. Here's my pronouns, and here's my emotional problems. They're they're desperate for meaning in their lives. And by thinking we're making lives better for them and they'll just figure it out and we want to give them every opportunity, it's like they need some guidance too. And you're not being cruel to your kids or you're not being hurtful to your kids by guiding them, by giving them structure. Because that structure and that guidance that you give them accomplishes two things. One, it lets them know, it gives them the tools they need to pursue that meaning in the world when they get out there. Because hopefully, they're going to get out there. But also, if a parent disciplines and guides their children with love and compassion, then they also know that there is someone they can turn to when they're afraid or they need help or they need someone stronger than themselves. And if they just have groovy dad and groovy mom, who's like, cool, whatever, dude, they're alone. They're left alone. They have no one to turn to. And that's why they end up in these rabbit holes on the internet and getting radicalized into different kinds of thinkings because they're looking for connection someplace. And if it's not going to be from their parents, they're going to find it someplace else. Something I try to do with my nieces and nephews because, okay, I admit it, I don't have kids myself. So who am I to talk? I'm a human being. I tried from the time they were very young to ask them what interests them in life. And more importantly, why. Because it's the why that's going to pull them forward in life. We've got to hand over this world to the next generation. And hopefully they'll be prepared to find that meaning in their lives and then ultimately happiness. So that's what I do with my nieces and nephews. And they'll tell you from a very young age, I say, what do you like to do and why? Because therein, hopefully they'll find what gives them meaning and satisfaction in their lives. And then as they get further in their educational process, they can start to focus on something. So that ultimately when they take jobs in the future or they look for jobs, there'll be things that are not only going to give them a living, but meaning in their lives. I realize this is a very long talk here, but it's incredibly important to me. And I hope to you. Because these are things that can be for our lives, for whatever time we have left, we can have more happiness by pursuing meaning. And then we can pass that on to kids too. You're helping them. The goal is to help them to find meaning and ultimately happiness. I'm Chris Rubio, asking you, as usual, to please think it over.